You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's Falling Skies After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Falling Skies After Show.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Big is for doing, and we're of course doing Falling Skies, Episode 4, Season 3, at all costs. I'm your host, Phil Svitek, joined alongside Nando Velasquez.
Hi there, Phil. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It was, we're doing this a little bit late for those of you, who are more on the live side of things. For those of you listening on archive, I'm sure it doesn't really matter to you. But anyway, I thought an overall really excellent episode. Things are starting to kind of fit together. We're really progressing forward. But before we get into the main plot line of tonight, let's start with the big decision of the kids.
Yeah, I thought this was a great. Little storyline to add in. We've got Hal and his cohort this season, Demi, and they have
Ben. We always get the Ben.
Did I say Hal?
Yeah, we'll talk about Ben. We'll talk about Hal in a bit.
Everyone's got a problem. Everyone's got something. But Ben, who actually doesn't have a problem, other than the fact that he still kind of has spikes protruding from the back of his neck down to his bottom of his spine, which probably makes it hard for him to wear certain kinds of clothes. But it also gives him superpowers. And he finds out that they have the opportunity, thanks to the Vulm technology, to actually get rid of those spikes, but at a great cost.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. I have an issue with that storyline. What's the takeaway at the end of it? Like, that you're gonna do these things, and his big argument was, I want to be needed. I want to be needed, and it's not a good enough argument for me.
Yeah.
Figure out another way to be needed. And, later on with Matt, they were making the joke of, where'd you hear that? Oh, I heard it from Dad. It's a quote from FDR. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's why Dad probably didn't get laid in college. So, he has a weird mentality on what his needs are and what they should be and his goals and things like that. And I don't think your goal, if your goal is to be needed, there's a different way of going about it.
True. I see your point there, but I see your point. But I guess, for me, if it was up to me, I think I would probably end up keeping the spikes.
Well, you're a terrible human being.
Does that make me terrible? I would want to choose superpowers. Wouldn't you think I'd be helping people out by having these superpowers in battle?
Yeah, that's what every villain starts off saying.
Well, maybe if I started getting more spikes and getting more powerful. But you know what? Here's the thing. If they lose their spikes, they also risk losing any communication they have to any rebel skidders that are still around.
I mean, okay, I'll accept that answer.
Okay.
But that wasn't the crux of their argument. It was like, hey,
No,
I'll go back to wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's bad. Too bad for you, really? So I'm not sympathetic or empathetic to their.
I think it's something that people wrestle with. I think it's a classic storyline of you have an opportunity to have great power or to keep great power, but at what cost? Like, what are you willing to give up to do that?
And I know the show tussles between that and also the family element, and I think they should have highlighted that more versus, again, his Ben's big argument was, I want to be needed. And then they had their kind of own moment of, they grew together as, friends or whatever they may be developing.
Yeah.
And that kind of overtook that storyline versus let's do this for the colony.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the whole family aspect of it, because Ben is obviously making this decision with nobody else around him. So he is.
Except for Matt. I mean, ironically, Matt's like, so then keep it.
Yeah.
That was it. That was his quick argument, and that was the advice he had.
Yeah, well, out of all the family members, Matt, I mean, I don't think Hal could have really helped him in this episode anyway, but he really needed his dad. I think if his dad was there, I wonder what his dad would pick. I'm sure his dad would probably want him to take the spikes off.
Yeah.
So I guess that would decide it right there. But that's the thing. He's all alone making this decision with the only other person he really trusts, which is his friend Demi. So she also wrestling with it, but she decides to keep the spikes herself.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see where they go with this and to see what the effect is, the long-term effects of having these spikes, because I believe they are hinting that there is going to be more issues with these de-harnessed kids if they keep their spikes in longer.
Yeah. I mean, I think they mentioned 20 years. Like by age 20, I'll be dead. And you go out a point without it, they might die anyway. So okay.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, they're in the middle of a war. I mean, they might take them out and still get shot up tomorrow.
So it does raise a good point. It was kind of funny to me seeing the bit of peer pressure when they're getting the pros and cons of like, hey, I'll have to go back to my inhaler. So you ready to make the decision? And they both agree to it in that moment.
Yeah.
And yet then they have that. It's not like they're led all of a sudden into the surgery to have it done, which I was expecting. Mm-hmm. It was more like, okay, you've agreed to it. Now let's wait like 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever the case may have been, because because obviously the decision changed for them. Yeah. So it was just kind of funny to me how they expected them to make a decision right there, but nothing was actually done at that point. So it just should have been a slight moment of like, you know what, you don't have to answer now, but think about it.
True. I really generally liked. I like this storyline. I really do. I hope it pays off a little bit more to see more about it, because to see what their decision causes in the future.
It would be interesting in this sense. By having kept that, we obviously know, and we'll talk about Hal in a moment, but because Hal is becoming such this monster, that it's good that they kind of kept it, because it might have to be a hand-to-hand combat battle, and how awesome would it be, brother versus brother, in that manner? Who wins?
That would be actually really, really interesting.
So it is good that they kind of saved it. So that's kind of a prediction. That's perhaps a hope as well, more than a prediction.
I kind of like that prediction. I kind of like the way you're going with that. So.
Before we get into Hal, I guess, let's talk about a quick movie that is completely different from Falling Skies in tone and family values. It's called Adventure of Serial Buddies. It's the first serial killer comedy of all time. It's got Henry Winkler as the narrator, so it gets a lot of comparisons to Arrested Development because of that fact, because Henry Winkler's on the show, Ron Howard narrates, and so check out who's better. It's got Beth Bears from Two Broke Girls, Artie Lang from Beer League, Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future, Christopher McDonald, Happy Gilmore, Maria Menounos from many things, including the creator of AfterBuzz TV.
Yes.
And it was written and directed by Kevin Undergaro, the other co-creator. So check it out. It's very, very funny. It's out on iTunes now, or go to serialbuddies.com. It's very, very cheap, just so you can enjoy it. That was the goal. We've set it as low as we could.
That's only $4.99 to rent it, I think, right? And then $5.99 to buy it.
Yeah.
God, it's cheap.
Sometimes you just want a good laugh.
I like laughing.
I love laughing. With Hal, they had some they did have some actual comedic moments. I don't know if it was intentional, but it was kind of funny to me. But I also will say, with Hal in particular, what I loved is the cinematography and the way they told that story. It was really beautiful in that sense. And I know you equally liked it.
Yeah, well, you got to love Drew Roy, the actor. I mean, he got to play evil Hal and himself in that one scene where he's visualizing himself, and I believe I would compare it to like Willem Dafoe in The Amazing Spider-Man when he's wrestling with not The Amazing Spider-Man, but the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man, actually, when he's wrestling with the Green Goblin inside him. So it's just really awesome, and I guess it just shows really the power that this parasite has on Hal. That well, first of all, he couldn't walk for a while. I guess he was resisting the parasite. But now that he can walk, now I guess the parasite's a little bit more able to mess with his mind, and he turned into Evil Hal. Actually, you can't help but like it. I mean, Evil Hal is, he's macking on Maggie with no...
Oh my, he had that sinister look at the end of to me it said basically, all right, we're done with round 1, on to round 2, and you're going to like it.
Yeah.
So,
he's having his fun with Maggie, and he doesn't care. He's totally like willing now, as in the beginning when he's trying to find his dad, he's trying to talk to his dad to tell him that he thinks he's the mole because he's been, because Karen did something to him that affected him, and Maggie talked him out of it just because she didn't believe he was the mole, and now he's like, yeah, I don't want to tell my dad after all. I just like doing what I'm doing. And then, of course, we see the big cliffhanger toward the end. But still, just to see this Evil Hal, it's really interesting because I would say, you might agree with this, I don't think he's the mole. I still don't think.
You don't think he's the mole?
I still don't think he's the mole.
Who the hell's the mole?
I think it's got to be somebody else. But I think that he's definitely now a second problem that they have in Charleston that they're going to have to deal with eventually when they figure it out.
I think he's the mole because...
Well, if he's the mole, without getting to other parts of the story we're going to talk about, how did the aliens figure out where Keystone was?
Because he knew his dad was away, and then he's through whatever scenes that we may not have seen, he figured out the information.
Okay.
He got it from one person to another. We don't know who died during that time to get the information.
It's possible.
Because he came in and he's looking for his father. His father wasn't there, and he said, and he was like, okay, don't tell me, but when's he going to be back? And although we didn't in that moment necessarily see the information being passed to him, that doesn't mean he didn't get it.
Okay. Well, it's possible. It's possible he's the mole. I still feel like the mole's got to be somebody else. It's a big mystery, and I think it'll be revealed later in the season who the mole is. But I think it's a big mystery as far as who it is, and it's better that way. It's better set up as.
Now tell me this also.
Okay.
So going off the mole subject, and tell me if I'm reading too deep into this. Tell me it's not going to be like a Prometheus type of scenario where he's implanted a demon baby in her through the sex act.
Oh, through Maggie?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. You know what? That's wow.
I stumped you there.
Yeah, you stumped me there. No, I mean it's entirely. I mean he has this parasite in him, and
he did give that.
And he
gave that wink to the camera at the end.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah.
I mean, and if you think about it, it's one of the first things he did was, said, I'm not going to tell anybody. Let's go back to my place, or to our place. Excuse me, to our place. And so maybe. Holy crap! It's possible, actually. That's a possibility. I mean, could we have two baby Alexises running around?
I mean, it seems like, if... Well, they keep bringing up the notion of, sort of coming in through the back door, right?
Yeah.
In episode 2, that was, the humans' kind of way of getting in, right? And then in tonight's episode, after they had... after the attack is over, they said, we've tracked the perimeter, we're kind of secure, we'll check the back entrances to make no one got in there.
Yeah.
I forget the line that Tom says in particular, but he says, or let's hope it's not even worse. And so what's worse, right? So you have a perimeter, and let's say you have an entrance that's open. Yes, that might be bad, but if it's coming from within your own campground, that's ultimately more dangerous. I mean, baby Alexis, we don't quite know what she's about. And then if you have Maggie being impregnated, and this is just crazy. So it could be that way.
Things could be falling apart as we speak all over camp with all these multiple,
and especially with Tom gone, and now with the big cliffhanger. And even if that didn't happen, had he been able to go on this parade, he's not there.
Yeah.
So as great a leader as Miriam is, who knows?
I still think she's the mole. I'm just gonna say it. Okay. I think it's Miriam.
Okay. All right.
I think I've alluded to that.
We'll put you on the record.
I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna stick to my guns.
Well, you could be right, you could be wrong.
Yeah.
Do you think had Hal told Dan, things would have been different for him?
had Hal told
Weaver.
Yeah, yeah, I think things would have been different.
I mean, what would that mean, though? Like, again, we kind of argued or, tossed up the question of, okay, once he tells his dad, does his dad keep secret about it? Like, what happens? So I guess the notion, tonight, had he told him, what would have happened to him?
I think he would have been, I think he would have been, well, I think Tom would have stayed.
Had he told him initially, like to his father?
I think he would have.
Okay.
I think there's a big conflict there, but I think Tom will pick family when he knows he has to pick family, and I think that's a big enough reason for him to stay. Even at the expense of doing his mission that he had to do, or the only other thing I could think, well, he couldn't have brought him with him because if he is the mole, it was just too risky to bring him with him. Or he would have locked him up. Those are the only two options. He would have locked him up, or he would have stayed behind.
It's actually. We'll certainly talk about this more with Tom, but, just really quickly, their family problems are expanding in such a way that I don't think Tom, because, okay, so let's say he focused on Hal.
Yeah.
Then he wouldn't have been able to focus on Alexis.
Okay.
There's certainly, as we talked about with Ben, that's still going on.
Yeah.
We know Matt has issues with going to school.
Yeah.
And then he would have foregone the mission at hand. So...
He would have half-assed everything. That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
He would have half-assed the whole thing.
Yeah, so he's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Well,
no matter
yeah.
what.
I mean, look, everything else would have still gone to hell. He would have helped Hal out though, but everything else would have still gone to hell. But at the same time, this mysterious mole, if it's not Hal, which I'm saying it's not Hal, if he ended up not going on the mission and not telling essential personnel about this mission, including perhaps the mole herself, who I think is Miriam still, then President Hathaway would be okay. They wouldn't have been attacking a Keystone. So it's a lot to ponder, but it's a lot to ponder. That's all I'm saying. But
I just with Hal, I'm still intrigued what the great mission is, and obviously we've heard mention of Karen multiple times.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen her since they last saw each other in the woods.
No, not at all.
So it's been a while since, we apart from making mention that she's been there.
Which is great. I think it's kind of cool that we haven't seen Karen in a while, because I think when she does show up, it's going to be like major stuff's going down. They're really like waiting to use her again. So I kind of like this letting her sit back and let all this craziness unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be really, really fun.
As much as I like seeing Karen, because she is hot, but...
well, so is Maggie.
Yeah, so is Maggie, so...
that shameless moment from us. Let's talk about the crazy baby.
Crazy baby.
But even so beforehand, the doctor, Kadar, he has a weird fascination with children, and he had that moment, kind of getting ahead of it before really explaining anything about the storyline, but they're talking about kids and things like that, and he has a moment and he leaves. What was that about?
Him leaving?
Remember, so they're talking about kids, and I feel like well, I'll explain it, then I'll explain what for me it means. They're talking, and she says to him, I had a child before all of this, and then he passed away, and he said, I shouldn't say anything, I shouldn't be even talking, I'll have the results to you tonight, and then he storms off. It seems like he lost. He mentioned that.
No, I think you're right. I think I see where you're going, but I think you're right. I mean, he's completely antisocial, and there's a backstory to him, and I mean, it's great that we've seen him again. I really loved him his first appearance in episode 2, and I'm really glad to see that he is at least a recurring character at this point. Yeah. So I'm sure there's a lot of backstory that we'll hopefully get to find out soon.
Yeah. Which I loved his description. But it's also highly inaccurate when he says, now it's like Grand Central down here. You got one person coming in. That's hardly
someone like him with that kind of phobia. One person is Grand Central.
That's maybe Grand Central nowadays. But it's just very telling of the mentality he has, and I also think it's also telling of the fact that he lost so many things dear to him, whether his wife or just Well, it seems like he might have lost his wife, and then, you know, all he had was his kids, and his kids died.
Yeah.
If I was to guess, I think that would be the backstory.
No, I mean, that's a pretty good guess. I think, obviously, this guy's dealing with some loss. I'm sure he wasn't as introverted before the war started. I'm sure he had a very, very nice life, loving life, and just been really, really scarred by events that we have yet to see. But they obviously affect him getting close to anybody. And how sad, in a way, that he finally does
Make a friend. Only to be ruined. I mean, through no fault of his own.
Yeah, through no fault of his own.
And it's okay. Unless I'm mistaken, I didn't think. I think Anne's always hated the baby, and there was a switch in tonight when she finally says "I love you" to the baby, that she actually loves the baby, and then all of a sudden goes on the mission to protect it. Has she always loved the baby in your eyes?
I think she does love the baby. That was confusing to me, honestly, her actions afterwards, because again, I don't know, where do you go with Alexis? Where are you going? You're leaving your safe haven, and I get it, you're a mother, you're protecting your kid, but I just didn't really get, like, I would have liked to have seen where she was going, I guess.
In which we perhaps will. I don't know. I mean, she's obviously going to be taking. Here's the thing: you just needed to. If anything, just roofie up the guy. Make him forget that he knows the DNA test.
Are we going to Arrested Development now? We're going to give him Forget Me Now.
That is an Arrested Development reference, but it just seems like as long as you kind of keep it a secret, and obviously I think that there's ways of controlling Kadar to not give out the information.
Yeah, I guess that's why she drugged Lourdes, because since she didn't kill Kadar, she still is somewhat rational enough not to kill.
Yeah,
she wants to protect her baby, but not at the expense of other lives. I guess she felt she had to get away from Lourdes and get away from the base. And of course, there's no Tom to help her, and Tom thought she was kind of a little bit crazy anyway over this whole thing. So, again, very interesting. What if Tom was there? Again, what if Tom was there? What would Anne have done if Tom was there for his family?
It would have been interesting, but at the same time, I also discredit her because, I mean, yes, it's Tom, and I get it.
Yeah.
He's busy, but it's also one of those things that I've learned. Anytime you put off a conversation, it just leads to bad things. And so as soon as she said, we'll talk about it later, later's never coming. I knew from that moment they would never have that conversation. And now, who knows if Anne's going to be even alive? I don't know.
Oh, well, I hope she remains alive. I would have to think they have a plan with her. But she does know about Evil Hal, or at least now she's wondering what the hell Evil Hal's doing there. But
could she get converted too and become another kind of mole? I mean,
if it's that easy for Hal, I guess it could be that easy for her too.
Yeah. So again, the threat comes from within.
Yeah. But again, interesting to see. It was just very interesting to see what developed there. She's trying to run away and to be with that harness kid and the skidder, and then to see Hal pop up. Again, really interesting. What are their plans for Alexis? And I guess for Anne at this point, again, because Anne knows what's going on. I would think, I would think she would probably be infected. They would probably try and, not harness her, but use a parasite. But again, we've seen that the harnesses work on kids. They don't harness adults. Mm-hmm. Hal is somewhere between adult and kid. Do you think that's safe to say? I wouldn't say he's a full-grown adult. He still is more early 20s, I guess.
He would say he's an adult.
You would say he's an adult? Okay.
He would say he's an adult.
He would say he's an adult, but he's still fairly young. So I wonder if these parasites, if these tools to harness kids also apply, if age is a barrier.
Yeah. And you know what? Let me get your take on this, because we would be reminiscent to... Okay, so there's 12 samples. Mm-hmm. Sample number 5 is obviously Alexis. What is it about a child that is just born? Because Kadar may know that too. That makes her different. And where could this have come from? From the exposure to Anne? Is Tom somehow infected? What is the reasoning behind baby Alexis? Where did this come from?
Well, I think when Tom was taken captive at the end of season 1. That's a possibility. And the other possibility is what happened in the end of season 2 when Karen had them all tied up in that alien base. That's another possibility too. I think, and this goes into what you were just saying. I think that maybe it's possible Tom maybe had a strain
That's why his kids are all infected.
Yeah, well, not his kids, but his newborn. I mean, he had sex with Anne just like Hal's having sex with Maggie. So maybe there is something there. Yeah. That would be the most obvious choice because I didn't see, none of us really saw anything when Anne was tied up, when Karen had her all tied up, like her ingesting anything, her being drugged, needle, like given a needle. So that would be the only thing.
I mean, the only maybe possibly if there's some sort of exposure, not that they're not dealing with radiation, but because she's the one kind of always doing these procedures, if there's some sort of exposure to her, that is a little bit far-stretched, but I don't know.
It's possible. Here's a really interesting possibility now that I think about it. What if it is the Volm technology, and what if the alien strand that she has is not from the Ashveti or from the Skitters, but it's from the Volm? What if it's a Volm strain?
That would be quite interesting.
And then that might also mean why evil Hal and I guess Karen ultimately. I'm guessing that the Skitter and the child are working through Karen ultimately. That might be a good reason why they want this baby so much, because they realize this baby is a mixing of Volm and human genes.
There you go.
Quite
interesting.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Oh, thank you for that. I guess that's my prediction.
There you go.
There you go.
But let's get into the main thick of the story. President Hathaway, that whole storyline. I thought it was it really again, it presented Tom being away, and so it obviously threatened all the storylines that we talked about, but advanced others, and I thought it was really fun.
Yeah. Well, first of all, shout out to Stephen Collins from Seventh Heaven for being President Hathaway. Nice to see preacher dad being the president.
Yeah.
And of course, really awesome mission. It's nice to see Tom get out of Charleston. I think, we like it when Tom's in action. So to have him behind a desk or even dealing with the family stuff, as much as we realize it's important, his family's falling apart right now. They probably need the father figure. It's kind of nice to see Tom doing stuff, going out there and going with Cochise, getting to see Cochise again. This is the
What
first.
do you think about Pope going too? Before we get to Cochise.
Oh God, Pope is just, well, of course, Pope being so. I hate to say, he's kind of like, what's his name, Sawyer from Lost. It's like, this is my plane. He doesn't want to give it up. He's forced to, and then he's like, "Well, fine, I'm going with you guys." So, an interesting little kink in the armor there. Was
that kind of always his big plan? Remember, and I think it was episode 1. He said, they were discussing like, let's go to Mexico.
Yeah,
I got something bigger.
Yeah,
you think
I think that's his plan. I think that is his plan, probably having the plane and getting away. Maybe that's why he hadn't left yet, because he was busy still reading the book.
Yeah,
and trying to learn how to fly this plane that he got.
So could be that. So it was a nice little interesting tie back to Pope.
Yeah,
and having him.
Well, I thought he was all comfortable in Popeville, but I guess not. I guess he always had an escape plan in place with that plane.
Yeah, so I think it all is making sense.
A little bit more sense with Pope.
Yeah.
Do you like him?
Do I like him
a little more? Do you like him a little more now?
Not necessarily. I mean, I thought it was funny. Is like, I got to fix a line here, so let me just stay on the damn plane. I doubt I have much to contribute.
He was
what
good.
A liar.
Yeah, he was good comic relief. You got to admit, he was good comic relief.
But yeah, Cochise coming along for the ride.
Yeah. And of course, Cochise, because he's coming along for the ride, causing all sorts of friction over at Keystone, over at base when they get to meet President Hathaway, and almost getting shot at. The president not being happy about having Cochise on as a surprise.
Certainly not. And I didn't realize he was put on as a surprise, because obviously when he's getting on the plane, Pope's like, what's he doing coming?
Yeah.
So I thought you know, it was just a planned thing. Like, of course, bring Cochise, you know, because the president wants to meet him.
Yeah. No,
Clearly not the case.
Clearly not the case. They wanted just the humans to talk. Well, you know, I guess the Lieutenant Fisher didn't really get to explain that part of the mission too well. I mean, you never know who's listening. Plus, they're worried about the mole, so they're trying to keep it as quiet as possible. But I guess they kept it quiet from the president too, obviously.
Yeah.
So very interesting. But you know, a very interesting storyline, and really interesting to see how they treated the Volm in the beginning and in the end, separating Cochise from Tom and Pope, and putting them in the president's plane, as opposed to in the beginning when they were just going to lock him up and keep him separate.
Yeah.
So they've trusted, and a really interesting story when they were interrogating.
Yeah, let's talk about this flower.
Yes.
At first, it was like, what? But then it made sense.
Well, it's a very noble cause.
Well, all they want is to go back home.
Yeah.
That is their mission, you know, because we've been always wondering, well, what is their aim? And everyone's always kind of asked that. Now, let me ask this. It would have been so hard to dispel that into the public knowledge? Because that's a good story. And then, you know what? People go, well, that makes sense. All right, they're not a threat. As opposed to keeping that a secret and everyone be like, what are these bastards up to?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. So what's your take? Why keep it a secret?
Yeah, I guess it's just so much distrust over aliens. I mean, what we saw with Lieutenant Fisher, who she didn't trust him at all. In fact, in the beginning of the episode, seeing the aliens up topside, she freaked out. Seeing, you know, it's just he's a monster to them, to the humans. So Frankenstein had good intentions, for lack of a better, terminology, but you know, they just don't trust right away. And I mean, I think it's human nature. I think it's a great story that Cochise has, but I think it takes more than that. It takes a little bit more trust. I think it can, even in this world where aliens have been shooting you up for the past couple of years in this major war, and to have someone talk about a flower and talk about his home and trying to get back home, I think. Yeah,
but you know, obviously that's a very good story, but the short end of it is, listen, we're gonna help you fight.
Yeah.
And you're gonna win the war. And when you've beaten them, we can finally leave, because our goal is actually just get to our effing homes that they messed up, or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? And so if that's the case, then it's like, oh, okay, well, you know what? We can trust them.
I think knowing what you know from the show, I mean, yeah, it's an easier decision to make. But don't forget, if Cochise landed in Charleston and Tom wasn't in charge at that point, if it was back to Arthur and all them, do you really think that he would have had a chance to convince them with the same story to trust him?
Perhaps.
You think so? I'm not sure. I think I don't think so. I just think human nature is, especially in this world where aliens, you know, the Lieutenant said it. The only good alien is a dead alien. She said at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
And I think it's shoot first in this world. You know, shoot first anything that you don't that's not human.
Don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I agree with you, but you know, I mean, as the president says, on to round 2, which obviously meant, I guess, a series of summits, for lack of a better term.
That's what I believed he was talking about as well. I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. So I'm interested to know how many colonies are out there.
Yeah.
You know, because that was obviously, you know, Hathaway's kind of first mission. Yeah.
And it would have been really, really awesome to find out, but it seems like we might not find out for a while, based on the fact that looks like the mole found out about this meeting place and went on the attack.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, obviously, I see the importance of going after the president.
Yeah.
I wish more importance was kind of put on that. Although I guess it was, you know. And so, and what that means, especially, I don't know, I guess I would have liked to see, perhaps, just in theory, stretched out a little bit, because then if all of a sudden all these different colonies are kind of know that that there's a greater hope than initially thought.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden to have that attacked immediately, that would have symbolically meant more to me, I guess. I don't know. I'm just being hypercritical at this point.
It's okay to be hypercritical about it.
So, but either way, it was interesting. Obviously you're going to separate Tom and Cochise, I think, regardless. But to have Cochise go on the president's plane, I thought that was. I'm really puzzled by that decision.
Like I said, the Anne stuff puzzled me. This kind of puzzled me too, especially the way they were treating Cochise earlier, even with the story.
But did he go on because they needed to keep an eye on him, and they?
I guess so. I mean, that would be the only explanation. But I would have thought that he would have wanted Tom to go in with him instead. I would have thought they would have separated differently.
Yeah, but as much as Tom can give him information, well, here's the thing. I think.
Well, the Vome can give him technology. Is that what you're going to say, or?
Well, I think you need to separate them, because if the two of them are in cahoots, Tom could be a traitor for all anyone knows, right? And obviously he's working with the Vome, so God knows what they could be up to.
Yeah.
So okay, let's do the first natural thing. Let's separate them. Okay, but then who goes with who? Well, in theory, this Cochise presents a much bigger problem than Tom, because Tom's just human. So put him in our custody where we have eyes on him. That's how I would break it down.
Yeah.
Although I'm not entirely sure. So.
Well, I think what was interesting, and I kind of felt it when they separated both of them in the plane, and they put Tom and Pope together with their
colonel,
with the colonel, and then putting Cochise in with the president, was that something was going to happen to one of the planes. And I don't know, I feel like they're going to keep Noah Wiley on a little bit longer. So it kind of was a foregone conclusion that that something might happen to the president, and the fact that Cochise is in there, it's like, oh no, it's like it's a big deal. So
yeah, especially forget the fact that Hathaway is skeptical of the idea, the fact that Tom is so dependent upon the idea.
Yeah.
With Cochise gone, I mean, in theory, is he dead now? And with that, what does that mean for Tom? That's a huge loss.
That's a huge loss. I know. I felt just having them shot down was amazing. Cochise was in a human ship that he wasn't comfortable with, by the way. We didn't even bring that up. The fact when he got into Pope's plane, he's like, "Are you sure this thing's gonna fly?"
Ironically, that one was more safe.
Yeah.
Than the president's plane.
Than Air Force One or helicopter, whatever you call the big helicopter for the president. But yeah, ironically, you're right. But yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, there was a lot of hope that Tom was relying on, going to meet the president of the United States and convincing him to join this battle and to work with them in the Vome and maybe bring some peace, in the process with the Vome and these other factions, or this other major faction of the U.S. And now the president and Cochise might be dead. Yeah. So there goes his liaison in Charleston. And there goes the president. And of course, who knows who's going to take control now that the president's gone, who the vice president is or whatever, and how they feel about this. So, as it was when they were found out, they immediately blamed it on Tom that the aliens figured out their location.
Yeah.
So it sets back a whole bunch of things. And never mind the fact that as we cut to black, the other plane's not in any good shape either. Colonel's trying to land the plane, and it looks like he's just he got knocked out, and one engine's down. And from what we saw in scenes from next week, if we can talk about that at all, but I mean, it looks like they're kind of stuck. They're kind of stuck right now.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. With that, why don't we get into predictions? We'll do a little bit, perhaps extended predictions.
Extended.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV prediction.
Well, because I call extended because I want to debate this a little bit.
Okay.
So the fact that we've been in Charlestown, and finally we get word that the president is actually alive. Mm-hmm. So now we're kind of supposedly expanding into this world and what we know of the world. Oh, and there's colonies. We don't know how many colonies, but we want to kind of go on this campaign tour. And now that gets completely, it completely implodes on itself. And now we're back to basics of what it seems Pope and perhaps just Tom. We don't know what's going to happen with the colonel. alone in the woods. So we've stripped it down to the basics in this, and it's it's the full on survival mode.
Yeah.
At least it seems. I don't know. It could, I mean, ironically, the big cliffhanger last week was, well, we're getting attacked, and all of a sudden, threat's down, it's over. So, it could be one of those situations where 5 minutes later, we're saved.
I don't know if it is, because it looks like the clips showed a lot of Pope and Tom trying to get along and not really doing a good job of getting along. But Pope's obviously still pissed off about Crazy Lee dying. Blames Tom for that, and for the other for Lars also from the week before. Blames him for both of those. They never really got along to begin with anyway. And and again, I mean, right now it looks like everything's the stuff's hitting the fan. So
how do you feel about that notion though? If that is the correct notion of where all of a sudden we're expanding, but now, as from an artifice standpoint, from a TV show's perspective, now we're stripping it down to just the two of them at least. At least maybe a storyline. I mean, we'll expand obviously into hopefully Ann and Alexis, and we'll kind of get some. I'm sure there's going to be more questions raised, but maybe we'll at least get a few answers. Hopefully. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that I predicted before, that I was saying about that Pope is making more sense. He makes more and more sense now. And he has more. I don't want to say public opinion, but people are starting to agree with him more about their take on the Volm, about what he's doing exactly, about humans dying and the Volm barely doing anything at all. So this is actually the first time I think that Pope's almost on even ground with Tom.
But I'll argue against the fact that not necessarily that people agree with Tom, that agree with him. I can't argue that, but the fact of the Volm don't do anything. The whole reason why Tom got the meeting today was because Fisher was like, holy moly, the Volm, we need the Volm.
Yeah.
So if they're not doing anything.
Well, in all fairness, you're right. They were doing something this last episode, because we did get to see them come out with the guns and shoot the guns. But they don't go in the trenches. They'll just hang back and use their weapons. And then meanwhile, people like Pope and his berserkers, they have to go out, and like I said, two of them died. If they had the Volm technology that the Volm used at the beginning of this episode, they probably would have still been alive for all we know. So, but again, I mean, this it's a really good dynamic. I like Pope a lot. I like Colin Cunningham. I like Pope. I like what he's got to bring. And again, this is a different Pope than we've seen in the past couple of seasons. Some people might not like it, but I do. I do think my prediction would be more so as this is going on. The scenes that we're not seeing are in Charleston. So I would definitely think that Evil Hal. I do feel that the mole is going to probably end up taking control of Charleston while Tom's away, or causing havoc. And I do like the idea that the baby Alexis may be Volm. Maybe a Volm strain.
That could be a good prediction. Well, I think that about wraps up for us this week.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys, for listening in, and let us know what you guys think. I mean, we're finally now, as things are getting more conclusive, we can also speculate on other things. So I think hopefully you guys agree we're doing a good job of that, speculating all the different angles. And if there's an angle we haven't thought of, let us know. I always love hearing that. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com, the newly redesigned AfterBuzzTV.com, and let us know what you're thinking, and we'll definitely read it. In the meantime, though, definitely follow us on AfterBuzz TV for your latest updates. That's for whether Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and social media is yet unknown. And of course, Nando, where can people follow you directly?
They can follow me on Twitter at Nando Vel.
There you go. And if you for some reason don't know how to type it, go to AfterBuzzTV.com, look up Nando's profile. He has yet to do so himself. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your week, and hopefully we'll see each of you next week.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.